Welcome back. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has released a new global tax reporting framework for crypto assets. The new framework proposes automatic exchange of information between countries, mandatory customer identification, along with rules for exchanges, brokers and other operators facilitating trade in crypto assets. The G20 is set to review the global tax framework for cryptocurrencies in a meeting this week. The Indian government has also been calling for global cooperation to regulate crypto assets. In fact, India has imposed a 30% tax on income from virtual assets, along with a 1% TDS on every transaction. However, it is yet to frame further regulations. To discuss how the global framework will impact the crypto industry, we have with us Ramesh Bafna, Chief Financial Officer at CoinSwitch, and Amit Singhania, Partner at Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas and Company. Ramesh, if I can begin with you, India has been waiting to see how the global regulations around cryptocurrencies evolve. How do you see this reporting framework that has been released by the OECD?
Thanks, Parikshit, for having me. It's a fantastic move. It's a welcome move from the industry. It's a very comprehensive report which has come out, and I believe this will set the base for a lot of work to happen on top of it for India, especially when India is getting into G20 presidency this December. It sets the right base for us. This is a good framework. We are understanding this far more deeply over the period of time. And I think the implementation committee we will have the next meeting to see how this progresses further.
Right. Let me also get in our other guest right now. Amit, if I were to ask you, does this report really address the key concerns that the Indian government had, that cryptocurrencies could be used for illicit activities, terror financing, money laundering activities? Will this bring in more transparency, this framework for collection and automatic exchange of information between countries?
So, Parikshit, first of all, I would like to highlight that the objective of OECD just to lay down the foundation for the purposes of the exchange of information. So that's a basic standard, that's a basic reporting requirement which the service provider needs to comply with to collate the data, and thereafter making the jurisdiction responsible to disseminate the data as well as the information to the respective jurisdiction wherever the taxpayer belongs to. So this is the basic requirement. For example, if a particular individual is transacting, he is a cryptocurrency user. So the tax identification number of that particular user or the taxpayer will be collected by the service provider and thereafter transferred or transmitted to the respective jurisdiction. So that's a basic level standard that will be complied with. That will definitely aid in bringing the transparency. Now, thereafter, the onus shifts upon to the respective jurisdiction how they are going to utilize it. They need to first of all confirm that the information that they are getting is 100% certain, 100% accurate, and thereafter they need to act upon it. So this is going to facilitate in imposing the taxation structure of the respective domestic territories. So this is going to impose the confidence of the various jurisdictions involved who will be involved into the collection and the dissemination of this particular information amongst the states. So look, in the today's world, you cannot be unregulated. The more you will be regulated, the more confidence it will impose to the government of the various jurisdictions. And this is the first step in that particular direction. As you have seen in the last budget also, that the virtual digital asset have been taxed at the highest rate of 30%. This is quite a punitive regime because the Indian government does not have any data to collect. Once Indian government also start getting the data, they may also soften their stand upon the taxation regime. So this is the first in this particular step.
Right. Okay. Now, coming back to Ramesh. Ramesh, this OECD report also lays out the definition of crypto assets, service providers, and lays down reporting and due diligence requirements as well. What do you at CoinSwitch feel about these? What have you been asking the government for and Indian regulators for?
Yeah, on the due diligence report, right? This is one piece which we have been advocating from CoinSwitch from day one, right? In terms of KYC, if you look at our users who come in have to have mandatory KYC done. So it's a welcome move. This these are the kind of requirements if brought in, right, and which we already follow in CoinSwitch, brings in a lot more customer confidence, and it also gives the regulators a lot more data and transparency, right? And this will enable the entire crypto industry to gain a lot more confidence in India and to grow significantly. If we look at due diligence requirement, it basically asks for name, address, thing, place of birth of user. And when if it's entity, it's not only limited to entity's stand number, but also the due diligence on the controlling person, right? So it goes beyond just a single layer of entity, but towards the controlling person. I think it's such frameworks are extremely important. And coming into CRS, the CAF coming into CRS via an amendment is a welcome move. And we at CoinSwitch definitely believe this is in the right direction for the industry to go forward. Right. And if you look at reporting requirements, reporting requirements are very, very clear in terms of how do you between crypto asset to fiat currency, between crypto asset to crypto assets. And the third thing is high value transactions has to be reported. For example, if it's a transaction, you are buying something using a crypto payment above USD $50,000, then it also has to be reported. I think it has a comprehensive view to the entire node. Yeah, it's a welcome move from a crypto exchange perspective.
Okay, let me also get in Amit once again. Amit Singhania, what are the cues that India can take? As you said earlier, India has not banned cryptocurrencies, but at the same time, the taxation has been very punitive. They have been cracking down on advertisements on cryptocurrencies in the market as well. So do you feel that this OECD framework, this report, will help India in coming up with some sort of regulation in the coming months? Or you feel that India is not in a hurry and they would like to see how this framework evolves in countries like the United States and other Western nations?
So there are two aspects to this. First of all, in order to implement these OECD standards, India also requires a domestic infrastructure, domestic legislation to enforce these OECD reporting standards. For example, if a particular service provider belongs to India and it's an Indian resident entity, in order to impose the service provider to provide these kind of information laid out into the framework agreement to the government of India, they need a legislation. So in case this particular framework gets finalized, India also adopts this particular framework, then India definitely is going to amend the Income Tax Act to legislate the requirement under this particular framework to cast an obligation upon the service provider to provide such kind of information to the government. This is the first aspect. So where the India is sharing the information, this is the first aspect. Now the second aspect, where India will be receiving the information from across the globe, whomsoever has become the party to the framework agreement. In order to act upon the information received, I don't think that we require any legislative amendment because the legislation is already there to act upon those information. For example, once an information is received by the tax officer under this particular framework agreement regarding a particular crypto user, for example, a crypto user belongs from Cyprus, and under the automatic information of exchange agreement, India receives the information regarding this particular Cyprus crypto user, then the tax officer can initiate the assessment or a reassessment under the existing framework by utilizing this particular information, issue the notice why you have not reported the income, why you have not paid the taxes upon it. So for the second part, I don't think we require an extensive legislative amendment because the infrastructure is there. Yes, definitely for the first part, domestic measures or domestic legislative amendment would be required.
Right. We've run out of time, but Ramesh Bafna, Amit Singhania, thank you very much for joining us on this program, telling us about the impact of this OECD report on crypto asset reporting framework. But of course, we will have to see how the G20 accepts it and how India takes it in the days to come. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Newscentre. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.